damn. We're out of milk. Darling, I'm just popping down the road to get some milk.
Are you sure, dear? Isn't there a Grand Prix on?
No, don't think so. We'd have heard it if there was. Looked in the local paper. Singapore Grand Prix. No mention of it at all. I'm going out. Okay, see you in a bit.
Fuck off, you bloody maniacs!
Hello, I'm Gareth. He's Richard.
Hello.
He's Zog.
Hello.
And this is On Speed, fresh on the back of the Singapore Grand Prix, which was a proper entertaining race. Did you see it live, Zog? Did you watch it on some sort of electronic delivery system direct to your brain?
Live all the way, yep. Saw it live, and it wasn't the most thrilling race in some ways, but it does make the championship a lot more interesting. Hamilton's still going to win it, but it makes it a little bit less certain, and I love seeing the cars racing around Singapore. It's one of the most beautiful races under those lights.
Richard, were you happy that Fingers Linguaphone Linguini won?
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah. No, it was nice to see a bit of a change up the front, I suppose, and I like the fact that you've got Raikkonen up there.
Right.
Yep.
Not really knowing or caring where he was, seemingly. But, yeah, no, fair enough. Ferrari seemed to be doing the right things, and Ricciardo up there as well, because we like Ricciardo, don't we?
Yeah, the only smile that can be seen from space in the F1 paddock, I think.
Yeah, some of those incredibly high-powered lights in Singapore reflected off his teeth, and 13 people were blinded.
Richard, what's your daft explanation for why Mercedes couldn't put a good race together before we hear the sensible one from Zog?
Well, I haven't really got a daft explanation. I can give you the sensible one, which I think they're saying it's sort of track-specific, isn't it? That just the requirements of that track didn't quite fit their car, which seems odd because...
Something about apex speed.
Yeah.
I think actually the tyres, were critical here. It seems like the ability to get the most out of the tyres was the thing, and this was a circuit where, as you say, because of the characteristics of this particular track, it just didn't suit Mercedes.
It was a noticeable change in their range of abilities as well, wasn't there?
Yeah,
it wasn't...
fifth and sixth is a real step back. It wasn't just, all of a sudden the second row, it's back,
Yeah. They went from being the greatest car to the third row car, which is a hell of a fallback. It really stuffed them. You have to show respect to the Red Bull team, who managed to get their car to work on that track with the same tyres that Mercedes use. I know they're putting their power down in a very different way. Red Bull actually set up their car rather like a dragster. Did you see? The rake of the car was extremely pronounced.
I think that car's quite raky all season, though.
It seems
Reiki is also someone I know.
Reiki?
Yeah, a little boy goes to nursery with mine. Hello, Reiki. I don't think he listens. It's been quite dragstery all season, I think, noticeably so, more than the other cars, that Red Bull. When you see it in the rear three-quarter going away shot, it does look very sort of nose down with its bum in the air. But, do you know what I was more interested about in Singapore was this thing that David Crofty Croft kept going on in the commentary about, which is the electrical interference from the metro line underneath the streets they're racing on.
They've mentioned this before.
And whether this scuppers any hope of a London Grand Prix, because there's a lot of things underneath.
Could that be anything to do with Hamilton's problem? Because it seemed like
I think they ruled out electrical as such, didn't they? I think it was more sort of electromechanical, didn't they say? It was actually sort of...
It was to do with the pedal and
something physical stuck under the
potentiometer.
A bit of dirt on the tracks, maybe.
I don't know, yes.
If you got dirt on your tracks on the...
I think Lewis got his iPod full of R&B hip-hop stuff trapped underneath the pedal. That's what stopped him, apparently.
Is it because they put a selfie cam in the steering wheel?
Yeah, that stopped him as well.
Taking over 20 pictures a minute, and it depleted the batteries.
What was noticeable about this race was not just the fact that Mercedes weren't at the front and Lewis didn't win it, but also that Jenson Button was arguably the most liberated man on the radio. It was radio-free Button, wasn't it?
I've been meaning to look this up because they do the transcripts afterwards, don't they? Sort of full radio transcripts, and I've been meaning to look this up to see what other one-liners we missed.
Yeah.
From Jenson, tell your friends I'm here all week, Button, and his comical stylings. It was brilliant, but he just sounds like a man who, quite frankly, doesn't give a flying stuff anymore.
Yeah, well, you'd have to be more patient than Job. What was Job very patient for? I don't know, but he was very patient.
My Bible knowledge isn't so hot.
But to be honest, and fair play Alonso have both gritted their teeth and ploughed out the party line for this entire season now. You could probably manage that for half a season, and then you'd hope that you might get some glimmer of hope 3/4 of the way through, but... just not happening.
Yeah, I
and
mean, you have to say,
something's got to give, isn't it?
There can't ever have been a time in F1 history when there have been two world champions in such a terrible car. You know, the mismatch between the quality of the drivers and the quality of the machinery they've been given.
Yeah.
Is just something else.
Well, the rumour this week seems to be that Button is going to retire from F1 at the end of this season, even that he will announce it in Japan.
Yeah,
because in Japanese.
He wants his in-laws to hear it. I don't know.
He's going to announce it through the power of kabuki theatre.
Oh, okay.
The whole thing's going to be done in the style of kabuki theatre.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Very traditional way of doing it, but nice. Because of course it was in the newspapers not so long ago, his name being linked to the new Top Gear with Chris Evans.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like the obvious choice. Surely it would be a bit of an outside bet. But on the other hand, a media career is one of the things that a lot of the drivers will get into when they retire. And he'd really kind of warmed up in front of the cameras in recent years. So
he's always been great.
If he can apply some of those comic chops that he's showing on the car to pit radio, he'll be fine. I think that if they would employ him, the new Top Gear wouldn't just use him as a straight presenter.
Oh no, he'd be
and I can't possibly say any more than that because there might have been something that I was told in confidence.
Oh, really?
Which I don't know if it's true because this was only a theoretical thing. I wouldn't want to say in case I get into trouble.
But it is interesting that the American Top Gear has a presenter lineup that's stronger on driving skills than the UK lineup.
It really knackers them, though, for trying to do challenges where the three presenters compete against each other because they've got an extremely talented racing driver in their midst, and so they can't follow that sort of format point that the outgoing format of Top Gear used. But yeah, I don't think the new Top Gear is going to be like that anyway. I suspect that Chris Evans will be the sort of ringmaster and there will be a larger body of presenters who go out and do things. Well, it's not just going to be three blokes. It
would be a mistake to copy the old format too closely. You know, if you're going to have a new Top Gear, you've got to shake it up a fair bit, I think. And so just repeating too many of the same items, same strands wouldn't really work.
You'd have to call it Top Button, wouldn't you?
They've also, by the way, did you know, and I wasn't told this, so I can say this freely because I read it in the newspaper, but they were supposedly talking to Mark Webber as well.
Oh, really?
I reckon Button's going to have a year off. Because you would, wouldn't you? You'd go and do all the triathlons and the world championships that you could in running and swimming. And then, might want to do a bit of WEC, might want to do a bit of testing for McLaren. You know, I just think he needs his gap year, doesn't he?
He's probably never got a straggly beard. He could just put on a rucksack and go off to Thailand.
He could
but
go
I
and
can certainly see him doing some endurance racing. I think that would suit him very well.
What if he could combine the endurance racing in a car with some kind of triathlon, which I know he likes a lot? So he sort of does a few laps of Le Mans, and he pops out, wetsuit on, has a quick swim, back in the car for the night stint.
I think that's what they're doing in Formula E next year.
What? They're going to get wet and then get into an electric car?
Yeah, this doesn't sound like a good idea.
They have to get out of the car at some point. They might as well make them cycle, swim and run.
Their second car is across a body of water.
No. Okay, you get out of the car, you get on an exercise bike connected to a generator, and you charge
your car for the
that's
second
the way
part
you do it.
This is gold. Is somebody writing it down?
I think.
Come on.
Well, the Formula E people.
I was going to say that Formula E spy camera in the corner has just turned on and started blinking. Hello, Jenson. It's your friend Fernando.
Hi, buddy. How's the accent?
He seems to be getting more outrageous, but that's not why I'm calling, Jenson, my friend. I want to ask you: is it true? Are you leaving McLaren at the end of this season?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I might, but it's not definitely definite. Why do you ask?
Well, you see, if you go, take me with you, please, God. I'm begging. Don't leave me here. Oh, God, he's coming. I've got to go.
Do I detect the parameters for a quantity of disloyalty occurring?
No, Ron, everything is fine. It's a learning season, making progress. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Everything is good. Please don't make me lick the floor clean again, Ron. Please don't.
Sniff Petrol with Gareth Jones on speed!
Something made the national news this week, which we should know about on this programme. It relates to Volkswagen Audi, who in the States are about to get hit, it seems, with a fine of how much? $18 billion?
That's the
Might
highest
be.
potential fine
Yeah.
on the basis of the number of diesel cars they've sold and the maximum fine per vehicle.
So the story, as I understand it, is for the last, 3 years, VW have been making some of their cars that run on diesel in the States undercut the emission regulations, which are enforced by the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency in the States. And they've achieved this by knowing when the car is actually being tested. It can reprogram the data to emit some data and make it appear as if the car is producing fewer NOx
Well, no.
emissions.
It detects when it's being tested, and
Yeah.
the engine goes into a mode where it basically cleans up its act.
Yeah.
Clever.
And it
But with
runs.
power would be much reduced. and
Yeah,
thought and everything.
exactly.
Now, if that was a Formula One team doing that, you'd say, well done, lads, you've circumvented the rules. Well done, that's very clever. It doesn't work like that in the real world, though, does it?
Well, no,
Well,
you
they-
get an almighty $1 billion wrist slap.
Quite
And the
right.
EPA has done this before. The truck manufacturers, they did a few years ago, and they walloped them with huge penalties for...
And they were doing what, the same...
Yeah,
not
same
doing
sort of
that
thing.
case.
And there's specifically in the, I think it's the Clean Air Act in the US, specifically has a clause written into it which says that any device or
defeat
specialist
device,
map,
as they call
defeat
it.
device,
Yeah.
that's exactly it, to get round or to throw up unduly low emissions results only in the laboratory conditions in which the cars and lorries are tested is illegal, and therefore they can whack them if it's found out they're doing this. But I don't think they're alone in this.
That's what I was about to say.
I swear there are a lot of modern cars that you drive, and if you find yourself in a very sort of specific circumstances, you're in a certain gear at a certain speed, so then the engine's doing a certain amount of revs and maybe on a constant throttle, and then you go to accelerate, the car suddenly feels very flat and lifeless, and you sort of have to bust through it, and you always think, oh, this must be, I've accidentally encountered a point at which the car is...
It's in kind of careful mode.
Well, I think
Kind of,
it's
you
not
know,
even that. I just think that
exam
sometimes because engine management is so precise and complicated now. Reading about the very top end, like that new Ferrari turbocharged V8 that's in the California T and now into the 488, has engine mapping for every gear, and it's different. So the power and torque delivery characteristics of the engine are bespoke to each gear. That's how precise things are getting. So if you've got some diesel hatchback, it's not necessarily that they're putting in cheat codes or whatever, these sort of environmental Easter eggs that will make it know when it's in a lab and deliberately run reduced power but increased economy and therefore reduced emissions. It's that you will sometimes encounter the point in the engine map where it'll be tested, and that is just a sort of flat spot, because in the lab that'll make it sort of nice and frugal, and you'll just accidentally chance upon it. It's not like it's sort of hidden. I think the VW Audi thing was the fact that the car detects it and it almost sort of goes into a whole different engine management regime, whereas I think a lot of cars, they've just been optimised at the very specific
Well, that's the
points
thing.
where they'll be tested.
If the manufacturers are told the conditions under which cars are going to be tested, and they're just tweaking their engine maps so that under those circumstances they pass the test, but when they're flat out on a motorway they're producing higher emissions, that's not quite the same as what I understand VW has done.
Yeah. I mean, it's also, it works the other way, because the old Fiesta ST, and I think the new one as well, is not uncommon in that it limits torque in first and second gear, because it's trying to minimise wheel spin and also protect the gearbox, I think. And that's the sort of sensible strategy.
Well, fair
to
enough,
think. These are how tweakable engine management
And it's
are
easy
now.
to forget how complicated an internal combustion engine is, and how hard it is to make that very complicated thing both efficient and powerful and keep all your emissions down. And this is what we demand of engines these days.
I'm reminded of something that a chap I worked with, a TV producer, did once. He applied for a sort of a grant to go and work over in Los Angeles to make some films over there. And his grant was turned down, and he was really frustrated. So he created a pretend identity and called the organisation, "Oh, hi, I'm a journalist writing an article about this process of how you select. Can you tell me, what are your criteria? What are the sort of things that you would turn the thing down for?" And they listed all the details, and then he submitted another bid tailored exactly to what was required. This is kind of what VW have been doing. They've said to their software, right, when the computer asks you, Are you giving off unpleasantries? Don't give off any unpleasantries. It's very clever. You've got
Well,
to
it's more like, it would be
it's-
like your mate lying, though. It'd be like going, can you play
exactly.
the piano?
Yeah,
Yes, if he knew that that's what they required.
It's fraud.
Can you
It's
speak?
not.
I'm not lauding
it's
them
fraud.
for
It's
it.
It's not being ingenious. They're not being clever. They're being criminal.
Deceitful.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. They deserve, by the looks of it, on the basis of the information that is in the public domain. There may be more to this than we know. I'm sure there is, but on the basis of what we know, they deserve a pretty hefty fine. I don't know if other manufacturers are doing similar tricks, and
hacking
maybe
themselves, yeah.
I mean, you've probably got more insight on that, Richard, but I don't know.
No, I don't know. I mean,
it looks like they've been pretty dodgy. And the other thing is, this isn't just a couple of engineers down the bottom of the chain doing something clever.
No.
This has to be sanctioned at a very high level, and it has to be a very deliberate policy.
yeah. I'd love to know what my little Fiat 500 Twin Air does under laboratory conditions and what engine maps suddenly come into play there, because, as I've said a few times on the show before, it just does 39 miles per gallon everywhere. But if you read the adverts, what was it? It's like 70 or something. Rubbish. I mean, the best I've ever got out of that car is like 55, and I was driving like someone's grandma. It's ridiculous. Still like it as a car, but let's be honest.
But as a test, have you ever tried following exactly what the combined urban cycle, according to which the MPG is supposed to be measured? Have you tried?
Do we know what that is?
Well,
Drive
it's
at 10
almost
miles per hour
impossible
for
because
4 minutes?
it's in a lab. That's the thing, obviously. So it's on a rolling road.
Yeah.
And one of the things actually about that twin air engine, particularly the early ones like mine, is that I wouldn't say it has the best drivability of any engine in the world. It needs you to be in the right gear at the right time. And because it's amusing and it makes a funny noise, you tend to just sort of leave it in a lower gear and clog it a bit, which isn't good for economy. But even when you don't, if you change up too early, if you super short shift, which you can do in a lot of modern cars, again, because the engine management will compensate and wind back the timing and all sorts of things to make sure it doesn't go blah, 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 blah. But that engine does. It gets all very flustered if you don't change down when you should. It can't help.
The VW emissions potential fine, is it a fine? It's a fine? You call it that?
Yeah, if they
Has implications for Formula One, because the backstory to Formula One at the moment is that if Red Bull don't secure Ferrari engines for next year, they will sell out to Audi, and surely VW, if they've got to pay $200 zillion fine, aren't going to want to spend whatever it costs to get into Formula One.
Yeah, the coffers are going to be a bit depleted if they've got to.
Yeah, and also because I think it's not
multi-billion-dollar
just the fine
No
itself.
question.
I think VW made something like $10 billion last year. So it's the fine potentially is beyond their annual profits. So it's not like they can just put their hand. I mean, they have got lots of cash assets and things like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
not like they're
60
going to go bust.
billion-ish stock market value.
Yes, I don't think it'll bring the company down, but they have got to think about the knock-on effect to their reputation in the US and around the world,
Yeah.
but particularly in the US, where, the Beetle built up this incredible reputation. Audi's advertising slogan in the US that they've been using at the moment is something like honesty through engineering or something. I should have checked this before, but it's something along those lines. I'm pretty sure the word honesty and the word engineering appear in the same sentence when it's sort of been proved that actually one of those things is missing from the other thing. So
Cheating through engineering. maybe,
yeah,
but-
it's extraordinary. So I think all this reputation for being a maker of cars of great integrity takes a dive. I mean, VW is sort of struggling in the US. It's the one market where they underperform given the fact that they are sort of constantly vying to be the world's biggest car maker, but they never quite nail it in the US, and then the sort of latest thing to do their own bespoke Passats and Jettas for
Here's a
that
thought,
market. Still not cutting it.
It surprises me that they would go down this sort of devious software route, given that in the VW Audi group, they obviously have great expertise in making diesel engines work well. With the Audi racing developments, they're very good at diesel engines. It's a shame that they've
But you know what
got
they're
this
also
devious
very good
route.
at? I'll be honest, in their road cars, what they're very, very good at is just using engines for years with the same basic spec. Some of their petrol engines, I've lost them, in fact, even with their fancy direct injection heads on and all sorts of things, they're related to those engines that came in the 70s when the sort of new water-cooled revolution started with the Passat and the Scirocco and the Golf. And their engine families are actually sort of based on fundamental block, at least, and some of the heavy bits of the engine are really, really old. They're not ones to spend willy-nilly on whole new engine families. Quite the opposite. They're one of the most frugal and sort of make-do and mend car makers when it comes to just constantly refining the same engine families. And this is why I think they've probably had to cheat, because the alternative was to spend a lot more money getting it up to code and doing this urea injection, which everyone else seems to be doing to clean up diesels and to get rid of the NOx.
Yeah, but that's just taking the piss. That's giving the piss, isn't it? Sorry. Roll up! roll up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, roll up for the amazing Volkswagen TDI Traveling Magic Show. You, sir, where are you from?
I'm from the Environmental Protection Agency of the United States of America.
Ah, I see. Well, sir, do you see what I have here in my hand?
Why, yes, I do. It's over 40 times the permitted levels of nitrogen oxides, causing impaired lung function, permanent lung damage, and other respiratory problems, especially in the young.
That's right. But if you look again, I have magically made this problem disappear.
No, you haven't. I can still see it.
Oh, scheisse.
That'll be $18 billion, please.
Gareth Jones on speed.
A few years ago at the Frankfurt Auto Show, I think it was possibly 4 years ago now, Audi launched the e-tron brand with a car. Do you remember the very first car was called the e-tron? It was like an electric version of the R8. E-tron! I said it sounded like an alien race of androids coming to take over.
Well, worse, yeah. I think it sounds like the French word for turd.
E-tron?
And they were advised to change it, and they went, no, it's fine. Which somebody told me just while I was at the Frankfurt show that they have occasionally got this problem with the UK importer, and importers around the world get handed this news that there's a new car coming in, this is going to be the name. And the last one they had in the UK was when the Up came out, those special editions, the white Up and the black Up. And the UK arm went, that's not going to really work for us. And the Germans went, no, we don't understand. What on earth are you on about? And they had to send them some like YouTube clips or whatever, the black and white minstrel show, and go, right, this is why.
This is what people will think of.
And they got the sinking feeling that perhaps the management in Germany just gone, oh yeah, this is very amusing. Anyway, what is your problem? And then
we have decided to call it the Love Thy Neighbour Up. Kind of no, you can't call it that either.
Alf Garnett special edition. So yeah, sometimes it gets lost in translation. Hence e-tron, and the French importer probably going, oh no, I don't like this, and had to lump it. E-tron
has lived on in the race cars for a few years. The Le Mans Audis have all been e-trons in the last perhaps 3 years, I'd say. But it looks like we're going to be able to buy an e-tron Audi for the road. And the first one is...
You can, because the A3 e-tron, which is the electric hybrid,
is already on.
It's a plug-in sort of range extender type
It's
thing.
already on sale?
Yep.
Oh, excuse me, I didn't realise that. Sorry, Audi.
Yeah, it's all right.
But the QE is coming soon.
Q6 e-tron is on.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. The A3 e-tron is a range extender. I always get these mixed up. But it's a hybrid, basically. It's a parallel hybrid. No, it's a series hybrid. The engine acts as a generator, but then can also power the car directly, unlike in, say,
dual mode, like the Ampera does that.
But then you plug it into the mains and you can trundle around town all the time on electric power, and it's all right.
So we now have evidence that Tesla have been doing everything right, because everyone's trying to go for what Tesla are trying to do now, aren't they? We're seeing the Germans clubbing together to take on the mighty Tesla. That's a good term, isn't it? The mighty Tesla.
Sure, Elon Musk would be delighted with that.
It is interesting that you talk about it in those terms, because Tesla has got itself to a position where big manufacturers are perceived as coming up with concepts that are taking on Tesla. That's a testament to how good a job Tesla has done.
I walked past the Tesla stand while I was at the Frankfurt show. In fact, I was cutting across it.
Shocked?
And yes, it was... The atmosphere was electric. I'd forgotten something about that Model S that I think is rather good. Is they just got on the stand and the bonnet was up and there's a boot under there. There's another luggage compartment because there's no need for a big old noisy messy engine under there. So yeah, and I just thought, see, this is the thing, a bespoke electric car platform, you can do these things. But then, which leads us on to the Porsche
Mission E, the Porsche Mission E, which when I first saw it, occasionally you see a car and you can see its influences, or you can see something else in the universe which evokes the same sort of feeling. Have you seen the movie WALL-E?
Yes.
Ava or Eva?
Yes.
That Mission E just looks like the living embodiment of
very
Eva.
Sort of very smooth white exterior,
alabaster.
Do you know what? Yeah. In real life, it is a very nice looking car, and there's some bits of it you think, well, that'll have to change for production, but there's an awful lot of it you think that won't, because it is, to all intents and purposes, a car. You could sort of imagine it on the street. The front, funnily enough, with that, you identified the white, sort of sheeny, smooth whiteness. Actually, oddly enough, from sort of head-on or front three-quarter, The front is so sort of smooth and white, it looks like it's just an enormous piece of fiberglass, and that makes it look a little bit like a kit car. But from every other angle, it's really, really nice, and some of the detailing is really good. And I was looking at it, there was a Merc concept, I don't know whether you saw this.
The IAA.
The aerodynamic
with the, yes, and
this-
the aero thing and the extending tail. Now, I had a good
Interesting
poke
stuff.
around that, because I was at the press conference when they announced it, and then you could go up on stage and have a little look. And it's the great sort of folly of concept cars. There were things on that they would never be able to do in production. Not least just, if you imagine the front wing swept directly into the A-pillar with no seam at all, and it carried on right over the car and down there with no seams whatsoever. It was just a seamless, smooth shape.
Printed car.
Yeah, and you just go, well, now that's very nice, and that looks great, because even if you don't sort of register why it looks so sleek, then you realise what it is. There's no sort of ugly, jarring junction of panels. But they can't do that in production. It would be impossible to make. It would take hours to refine away the joints. So that's just concept car folly. The Mission E, it's
closer
really
to
production ready. The front wing just butts up against the A-pillar in a really sort of normal way, like on a 911.
One of the things I particularly liked about it was that although it's a similar size to the Panamera, really, it's a bigger vehicle, they did a much, much better job with styling it, and it does look, from the pictures, I haven't seen it in the flesh, but it does look gorgeous.
That's nice. It's really nice. But also, I was going to say, it was just reminding me why we got onto this, because it is supposedly a bespoke platform under there. And they're not mucking around here. They're explicitly going around going, we're going to make something like this.
Yeah, obviously, it would have put smart mind in them coming up with an all-electric vehicle at some point. But the interesting thing about it, I think, is that it's a four-seater Tesla S type car, not a little sports car. And that's intriguing. How much of that is because there's a marketing angle behind it, and how much there's engineering thinking behind it, I don't know. But it does strike me that if you're going for the Tesla S kind of sector, that means you can carry on with your petrol engine 911 for longer, and then another generation down the road you go electric with your sports car.
So with Porsche bringing out an electric car, do you think therefore we're seeing the beginning of the end of the internal combustion engine?
Well, absolutely. It's been a process that we've been seeing for a while. It's just becoming clearer, and there are just more and more things that make it apparent that it is happening around us.
So if Porsche were the first traditional manufacturer of IC engines to completely forego burning fuels on board to make your car go forward, would you be regretful or be proud, Zog, as a Porsche-phile and an electric car fan?
As a fan of the brand, as an aficionado of the brand, I'm delighted that they are being very forward in what they're doing, and that they're embracing the possibilities of the electric powertrain. But it's worth remembering that the first vehicle that had a Porsche name on it was an electric vehicle back in 1906.
I was hoping you'd say that.
One of their electric cars is slowly orbiting the Earth, isn't it, as well?
Yes.
Still left it behind. Yeah, I think they should have gone a bit more heritage heavy, though, on this one. Yes, they have the heritage of electric cars, but really, electric 911, all the batteries right at the back to make it incredibly tricky on the limit would have been much more true to what they do and what they did, I suppose.
Yeah, let's make sure it's really tricky.
No, in real life,
again.
the thing is, it was a great looking car. They're making no bones about it. They're going to make something, I think, very, very similar. This is just a little taster. It looked pretty feasible, barring a few details, and I think it's all going to happen. And I wonder whether that bespoke platform can then be jacked up to make some kind of crossover or SUV, because then if you've got electric power, there's all sorts of tunes you can play on that, even without hub motors, just to make it a bit more able over rough ground, and all kinds of dynamic things you can do with cars and off-road.
Well, and I guess while we're still on the engineering side, when we're still in these earlier days of 21st century electric vehicle design, when battery packs haven't got as light and efficient as we will get them, it's a bit easier to maybe do it with a bigger, heavier vehicle than a lighter weight vehicle.
OK, let's move it away from Porsche. We've got 1 minute left of the show. I want to ask your reaction in one sentence to the following cars at Frankfurt. The Nissan, what was it called? Grips? With the Z? Not for you.
Horrible. No, ghastly.
Richard?
Yeah, I'm with Zog. Just, I don't care.
I love the grille. I think they do great work. That bold
I'll buy you a grill,
reinterpretation of the grill.
You found the one bit of it that doesn't look ridiculous.
F-Pace, Zog? Jaguar F-Pace?
Volvo. That was the first thing that I thought when I saw it.
Oh,
really?
Yeah, really.
I think that's a really good bit of styling because, first of all, it resists that temptation to put slashes and creases everywhere, which almost everyone else is doing. and it was sort of quite a clean bit of design. And also because it sort of looks like the rest of the Jag family, and yet it's a very different shape and the proportions are different. So I think it's a clever bit of styling. And actually, do you know, I was looking at it, I was going, well, since I've had a kid, I look at cars and motor shows in a whole different way. I used to sit behind the wheel and imagine what it would be like on the limit and check how the gear change felt and stuff like that. Now I'm there with the boot open going, well, I could probably get the push-chair in there, and then checking the back seat space. And the F-Pace came up tops on both of those. And I started thinking, could I see myself in one of these? Maybe I could, I don't know. But the other car, which I thought was a very clever bit of styling, is the Bentley Bentayga.
Bent Tiger.
That's it.
It's a Bent Tiger.
No, don't get me wrong, it's horrid. And somebody on the Bentley stand went, what do you think? I was trying to be polite. I had to go, it's not for me, is it, though? I mean, it doesn't matter what I think, even though I am from Cheshire and I should like... Both the cars on the stand were gold, but different colours of gold. You could just tell. I mean, they know what they're doing and who they're aiming it at. And though apparently they've had loads of orders from the UK as well as from around the world, and they've sold out the first year's production. So they're clearly doing something right. But actually, I will give them credit for the fact that if you look at it, every bit of it on the exterior, you go, oh, that's kind of like a Conti GT, and that's like a Conti GT.
Oh, yeah,
they've
it's all
put
in
all
there.
of these design elements onto a very different shaped car.
Yeah.
And that's a harder job than it looks.
Yeah.
And you can get it very wrong, like they did with that EX concept they did before, which was
Falcon?
absolutely hideous.
What was it called? Falcon?
But don't get me wrong, it's a vile, vulgar, tasteless
it
car,
is.
and they will sell a shed load of them. So fair play.
But in a word...
And then they can keep doing like GT.
Is Oxford on the Bentayga?
Picnic.
Picnic.
Toyota Picnic.
No. In the back, it's got the wonderful...
Oh, the event seat.
Yeah, and do you know what? I will give them credit for that. The finish on all that was absolutely lovely, and the quilting on the leather.
That's what I want the Bentayga when I'm for a picnic. That's
beautifully done.
2 words on those two cars, and then we're going to call it. Right, first of all, the Bentayga. I thought they'd improved on that EXP concept, whatever it was called. They haven't really improved. They've done a bit, but not enough.
Go back and look at that one. I think you might be forgetting how absolutely awful it was.
The wheels that were the worst thing about it. And my final word, which is on the F-Pace, I didn't get to say what I thought about it, which is, lovely, great. But wouldn't it be lovely if it was a 3-door shooting brake? But I would say that, wouldn't I? Say goodbye, Zog.
Goodbye.
Say goodbye, Richard.
Goodbye.
And I was Gareth. See ya.
To send us an email, see pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site, follow us on Twitter, or to find out about sponsorship opportunities, go to garethjones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
I've never mentioned I quite like a shooting brake. Have I ever said that?
You may have mentioned it.
Gareth Jones on Speed!